Hello folks, I'm Alex, this is Alex Unabridged, and these are my thoughts on Hampton Heights by Dan Coys. So welcome back to the channel if that is the case. Yes, some more thoughts from me today, this time on Hampton Heights by Dan Coys. I think it's Coys, I can't remember how it's pronounced in the audiobook. I really ought to pay more attention. So yes, this was a bit of a random pick really. I have a ridiculously cheap offer on a subscription service, audiobook subscription service at the moment. So I've been just listening to a couple of random audiobooks. And one that I found in my searches of their catalogue was Hampton Heights, or to give it its full title, Hampton Heights, One Harrowing Night in the Most Haunted Neighborhood in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. This one was one that my buddy Troy had very good things to say about, I think last year. So I saw it and I thought, yeah, I'll give that a go then. Nice short book. So before I get into anything, the spoiler warning, as usual, I won't be discussing any major spoilers or anything like that, but if you've not read the book and you want to go into this completely blind, then do feel free to click away from this video now and come back when you're done. So a synopsis for you to start with then. Yes, Hampton Heights is a coming-of-age horror novel set, as the title says, in Milwaukee, in a most haunted neighborhood. And the story takes place on a cold winter's evening in the late 80s, when 6 middle school paperboys are sent out to sell newspaper subscriptions in an unfamiliar neighborhood. Their manager, Kevin, promises them cash bonuses and a dinner at Burger King. That's the most important thing to them, I think. But the boys soon find themselves confronting a host of primordial monsters and their own personal demons as well. So the boys then, who don't really know each other that well, some of them might go to the same school but in different years, things like that, but generally they're kind of strangers to one another. They are paired up, and each duo faces different challenges. So Simone, who is a black lad who is bused to a white school, is paired with Joel, who's a white boy, quite rich, from that school, a year above Simone, who idolises black culture. Then you've got Ryan, who's wrestling with his sexuality. He joins up with the charming, quite confident Mark, who he develops a crush on. And Nishu teams up with Al, and both of them are outsiders. And each pairing faces off their own particular weird and wild thing found in Hampton Heights. Meanwhile, Kevin has his own adventure. He seduces a beautiful woman in the neighbourhood's tavern, but soon finds himself out of control in a bit of a sticky situation. But as the night progresses, all of these weird things happen, and then the boys reunite for a cataclysmic finale where they confront their fears and they grow up quite a bit in the process. So then, what did I think? I loved this. I think this was brilliant. This was exactly what I needed when I started listening to this. It was heartwarming, funny, charming, a bit of great 80s nostalgia, and some horror, kind of, I wouldn't say it's cozy horror, but it's not like pulse pounding horror. It's fun horror. The boys in this, the characters of the boys are brilliant. I think, that is one of its major strengths. Each boy felt very well developed and very much his own character. And the pairings really worked perfectly. All of the boys were extremely believable and likable in their own way. There were kind of, there were a few of them that were quite annoying in a teenage boy sense, but endearingly so. And they all had to grow up during their adventures, and that coming of age was portrayed really well. But yeah, the fact that they were paired, they're very different boys paired together, and what they learned from each other and how they learned to get along and work together. Just really, really like charmingly written. The atmosphere and the setting of this, again, is fantastic. There's a really clear sense of place. I could imagine the neighborhood like really vividly. The sense of like time period is really strong too, the 1980s. As I say, yeah, it's creepy. It's got some creepy, eerie kind of like, fun stuff in there. But it's not all out like, scary horror. It's not scary. I wouldn't say it's scary. I think the sensory descriptions are really good as well, like the weather, the coldness, the light, the smells, all that kind of stuff. That's all really well realised. It had a really well-rounded sense of setting and a really effective kind of atmosphere to it for me. The writing displays a fantastic sense of humour. It can be silly. It can be somewhat puerile. It's teenage boys. Come on, there's teenage boy humour in there, but it's done in a fun way, in a very funny way to me anyway. I'm not averse to a bit of puerile humour. In a similar way that I like Grasshopper Jungle, which I read last year, which is again two teenage boys are the main characters. And there is a lot of, teenage boy humour in that. But there's also a lot more than that. And that's why it works so well. And the same goes for this, I think. It's more than just that. So, your mileage may vary depending on your sense of humour. But for me, some of the sense, like, the humour was varied and well-rounded and it all worked together. As I say, the writing shows great understanding of character and nuance as well. There is nuance in there, definitely. Some really good dialogue. The boys speak how teenage boys speak. And generally the prose is accessible, straightforward, but evocative. The pacing of it was great, and I loved the structure of this. It starts off, it introduces the different boys kind of through a look at why each of them is really drawn to this night of extra work by the promise of a Burger King and what Burger King means to them. It uses that to kind of show you their kind of base characters and backgrounds, that kind of thing. Then you've got the meeting of the boys as they all get into like Kevin's van to go to Hampton Heights, and so you get to see the kind of differences between them and how they bounce off each other, but also how they're all a little bit kind of unsure of one another. And then you've basically got the bulk of the book is a series of interconnected but quite distinct, almost short stories. The first one follows kind of Kevin's escapades, and then the next three sections follow each of the three pairings of the boys. It doesn't kind of flip backwards and forwards between them or anything like that. It devotes a section to that story. And each story feels like its own thing. It has its own kind of purpose. It has its own themes within it. But it still feels very much part of the bigger story. I would be hard pushed to say which of the stories in here was my favourite, to be honest. I listened to the first, this was an audiobook, and I have to say, actually, I'll say at this point before I forget, the narration on this was spot on, perfect for this story. So yeah, I listened to the first story, which is Simone and Joel's story, and thought, well, this is going to be hard to beat. This is brilliant. I love this. And I was kind of quite sad in some ways, to see it end because I was enjoying it so much. And then we shifted to Ryan and Mark, and their story, which is totally different to the previous one, but like totally knocked my socks off, and that became like my favourite story. And then again, Nishu and Al's story, which is possibly the weirdest and the creepiest of the stories, that was fantastic. And so again, it's constantly like, pushing the bar up. There is not a weak link in there, I would say, at all, across all of the kind of the different stories that are working together to create this overall arc. And then, yeah, the finale kind of brings the boys back together and ties up everything really nicely. It's quite a short piece. It's a short book. It's a really great length, actually, at just under 7 hours audio, or 208 pages if you read it in the paperback or hardback format, I think. It's tightly written. There is very little superfluous stuff in there. And for me, it was completely engaging from start to finish. The concept is just really fun. The execution of it was excellent. It's got plenty of relatable themes in it. And as I say, that structure, that interesting way of telling these stories. I really enjoyed the amount of kind of different styles and genres that Coys was playing with here. There's the obvious kind of horror stuff that comes into it, some horror monsters. But there's also kind of folk and fairy tale stuff. And certainly in the way that one of the stories is told, it's like a fairy tale in a lot of respects. And then you've got fantasy elements coming in as well, and fantasy references, stuff like that. Plus you've got an added levels of then within that, like family drama and like, as I say, coming of age and friendship and relationship stuff. It's a really great mix of themes and ideas, and it's all kind of combined in a really entertaining and coherent way. So yeah, enjoyment wise for this one, this is a 10 out of 10 for enjoyment, without a doubt. This was so much fun to listen to, and as I say, for me, it might just be that it hit me at the exact right time when I just needed something like this to lift my spirits a little bit. I had a bad week and I needed to like just have escapism and something that was just lovely but entertaining and engaging. Yeah, this was so much fun. This is, unsurprisingly, going on Storygraph at a 5-star. I think this might have just, you know, kind of become a comfort read for me. I think this will be one that I will go back to. I'll have to buy it because the subscription that I had it on was a you know, a borrow to listen to, as opposed to a you know, spend a credit and have it in your collection permanently. But I will probably buy the audiobook of this so that I've got it to listen to when I want a comfort read. This is absolutely the sort of thing that I want to comfort read. And I think this one stands a good chance of making it into my top 10 this year. I will say that now. We'll see, because we've got a lot of the year left to go. But yeah, it certainly stands a chance at this point, a good chance. So yeah, if you're looking for a short, fun 1980s nostalgia fest of horror and humour and just generally just, it's quite heartwarming stuff, I highly, highly recommend this. Coy's writing has a lot of heart to it. Anyway, there we go. Those are my thoughts on Hampton Heights. That's enough gushing about that from me. That will do from me today. Thank you very much for watching, folks. As always, do drop your thoughts in the comments. Do let me know if you've read Hampton Heights and whether you enjoyed it or not. Or have I convinced you to give it a go if you haven't read it? I do hope so. It is a great fun book. I will be back on Friday with another video, so I do hope you'll join me for that then. But from me, for now, that's ta-ra.